Hey there, everyone. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'm looking at A Silent Voice by Yoshitoki Oima. This is the complete collector's edition, one of two. It's a nice big book from Kodansha. I really like these larger mangas, especially in the hardcover. I think this is my favorite way to read manga, and I'm really glad that this is coming out in this format because I had fallen in love with Yoshitoki Oima's work with To Your Eternity when Menachem sent me these two. Menachem sent me the first two volumes of this with a care package. These were damaged that he sent to me, and absolutely fell in love with these books. I'm hoping eventually To Your Eternity gets this kind of treatment because yeah, I'd be all over that. I believe this is Yoshitoki's first work, and the artwork in it is definitely not as good as the artwork into Your Eternity. This has a more fantastical vibe to it. The line work is more confident, and there's also kind of like a Moebius meets Miyazaki vibe. The artwork in this is definitely much more straightforward, like contemporary manga in my mind. So I think this is a book that if I just would have glanced at the art, I probably would have passed it over. I mean, it's good. It's got nice backgrounds and stuff, but there's also just a lot of like blank heads and I don't know. It just seems more standard to me. But you get some lovely panels like this as well. The story, though, is really good, and it's the type of story that I'm talking about that I want to see more of, or that I'm thinking about, where it's just pretty much a straightforward drama. There's no fancy trickery or anything to it, and I'm very impressed with how manga pulls that off, and I'm thinking about how to use that in my own work. So this is another one of those drama books that I really enjoyed. Now this one's more geared towards probably like teenage audience, which is fine, um, but it still has a lot of depth to it. I think I enjoy the ones that are geared more towards adults just because I'm an adult, but I appreciate that for like a younger audience. This is still a really rich, good drama. So the story is about this character, Shoya, and this girl, Shoko Nishimiya, who are classmates, and they were in sixth grade together, and he's just like an abhorrent bully to her because she's deaf, she can't hear. And when he finds that out, when Shoya finds out that Shoko is deaf, he has this moment, which this is one of the more beautiful images in the book, where he sees her as so like other that it's like I can't even communicate across this distance. And so he's just a relentless, abhorrent bully to her. And that ultimately leads him to being bullied and being an outcast as well. And I really like the way that they're dealing with this difficult topic in this book, where again, it's not just so one sided, like you're seeing kind of the nuances of the terrible interactions on many different sides for the characters, the kind of reasons they're behaving the way they are. There's not giving any excuses to anyone, but it's not just like a you're the flat out the bad guy. So I like that. I like how that develops, and that's just kind of the basic setup. I don't think that's any spoiler that that's the premise of this book, is that he's her bully early in life. I like this little sequence here where it's the same image and he's getting called into the principal's office, but it has slight differences in the way their gestures are, more closed off in this one, more open in that one. So there's a lot of really good subtle like character acting going on in the drawing already. This is like they really have a knockdown drag out fight, which is pretty intense to watch this boy like beating the hell out of this girl after she slaps him. And you see that, I mean, they really just have a lot of hate for each other in their childhood. I also like that throughout the book they're showing Shoya, he's just kind of has like a social disorder. He also has trouble connecting and communicating, and they're showing that some of his behavioral problems as a youth are due to this like social disability that he has, where she has like a hearing disability. He's got a social disability where he has a real hard time like connecting to anyone. And I really like this strategy that Oima uses throughout the book, where he sees everyone's face with an X over them, like they're not people to him, they're just humans. And I really empathize with that because I had that problem growing up. I mean, it didn't make me a bully, it just made me kind of reclusive. But like, I had a hard time being social. I had a hard time getting to know people. People's motivations didn't make sense to me. And so I really like that. Like, they're humans in the room, but they're not people yet. And that causes his problems. And there's these times where he will start to see through to a person. Like, he's helping this kid who's being bullied about his bike, and for a second he's like, oh crap, our eyes met. And where the person starts to come through is like very uncomfortable for him, but he also wants to like know what it is to have friends, you know, that his friends aren't just people he gets in trouble with, but what are real friends. And so he goes through this situation where he helps this kid, and then the kid helps him and gets his bike back, and you see the X go away, and it's like, hi, I'm Tomohiro. And they start to become friends. And he's not just a human being now that's in the area, he's a person. And I've had that experience myself many times, like where someone switches over into like, I know them now. They're not just like a face in the room. And I always felt bad for being the kid in high school that had, like, now that I've grown up, I realized like I wasn't a bully to anyone, but I was definitely that kid sitting in the room full of faces, X faces. I thought I was like the quiet artist kid that no one knew my name. And I've had plenty of times as an adult where everyone kind of remembered me because I was like the kid sitting in the corner drawing, and they'll come up and say, hey Carson, how's it going? And I'll have like no idea who they were, you know, people I went to high school with or whatever. And so later in life, I've realized like, hey, they weren't the jerks that were ignoring me because I was a nerd. I was the asshole for making the assumption that everyone was going to pick on me because I was a nerd and shutting myself off. So I think this book has that kind of richness, and the author says it in some interviews in the back too, that people are mistaking this book about totally being about bullying and people with hearing disabilities, that's like a representation of communication disabilities in general was the main theme. And that's what I'm taking away from the book as well, that there's this core story about this kid who has inability in social situations, and then he's coming to find out more about himself by reflecting on the fact that he was a terrible bully to someone, and then has learned sign languages and going and getting to know her later in life and trying to cross the communication barrier. And for her as well, like, she's always just, been like too nice to everybody, said thank you, I'm sorry, and always taken the blame on herself and hated herself. And so she's learning to be, more to stand up for herself more and speak her mind. So I really like that. I think that's complicated. The way life is really complicated. And there's scenes where characters are coming to realize like the communication barriers that they're having. So here, Shoko is off talking with someone else who can speak sign language, but they've got their backs to Shoya, and so he can't see their responses. And when they're speaking a visual language and he's relying on his eyes, all of a sudden he becomes deaf and has some of the same struggles. So there's that constant back and forth of empathy in the book, which is really nice and played out. This is a strange sequence here. This is some cultural thing in Japan I didn't quite get, but like this girl wraps a tail on and then puts on cat ears, and that freaks him out for some reason. It is another bully that he had interacted with, Naoka, and so she becomes part of the group that's developing, and this develops into a larger group of friends and relationships, which is really nice. So that's like kind of the theme and the premise of the book. The artwork keeps getting better as it goes, which this is Oima's first book, so that's I mean, as a writer, fantastic right out of the gate, and a growing artist. And I know by the time that we get to 2 Year Eternity, the artwork's amazing. So highly recommend this. Some cool extras that I've never really seen in manga collections before are some of the like rough sketches, thumbnails for pages, character sketches, those type of process things, some nice color work. So this is like a real good full collection. And then the full short story. So this had first been a short story that won an award, and they collect that. And I think the second edition is going to collect a second iteration of this that expanded on it, and then eventually it got expanded a third time into the full series. So that's cool to see, because I've been thinking a lot about how to compress and decompress stories because of all the manga that I've been reading. It's really, really instructive for me to see a manga artist have, you know, I don't know how long this is, but maybe a 48-page story or something like that. Like the standard, if Americans were to tell this story, this is the length it would be. And then to see it decompressed into the manga style gives me a lot to chew on. And then also interesting, there's some interviews in the back. That's where I was saying the artist is talking about this being more about communication barriers in general. The theme is communication in general, so it's not so much about... I'm a little uncomfortable with this work being described as simply a manga about bullying. Bullying and hearing impairments are not the main themes I choose for this story. I wanted to portray how difficult it is for people to communicate their emotions to each other. I meant for it to express that this is a story about communication itself. So I like that. I like that it's got a core social issue in it, but it's much more open about the topic. It's generalized and not so specific. And I think that's what really makes this a really, really powerful book. So I would highly recommend this for everyone. Definitely get it in this cool hardcover edition. Kodansha, woo, we need some To Your Eternity collected in these hardcovers. I've only got 2 of these, and I've been meaning to get more, and that will incentivize me to buy the whole collection. For those of you who get this, if you still have some money left over and you haven't got it yet, make sure to get The Strange Death of Alex Raymond by Dave Sim and myself. It's recently been nominated for an Eisner Award in Best Reality-Based Work. So if you have not got this Eisner nominated, I can call it a masterpiece because it's mostly someone else's book. If you haven't got Dave Sim's latest masterpiece, make sure you go out and get this, and then keep an eye out for the other books that Sean has from Living the Line. Yokoyama Yuichi's Plaza, which is a super intense manga, Eric Creek's The Exile, and Miel Van de Peet's Centralia. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.